Welcome back. Today, we're uncovering 4 Washington quarters that are anything but ordinary. At first glance, they might look like the coins in your pocket, but each one has a secret, rare errors, perfect strikes, and auction prices that can reach hundreds of thousands of dollars. From coins that survived decades of circulation to ones with unexpected minting quirks, these quarters are collectors' dreams. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just want to check your change. You never know what treasure could be hiding in plain sight. First up is the 1966 Washington quarter without a mint mark, a coin that many Americans remember using every day. At first glance, it looks plain and familiar, especially when it's worn from years of use. But behind this simple appearance is a fascinating story about a changing nation, a shortage of silver, and a few rare survivors that have sold for prices most people would never expect. The 1966 Washington quarter was made during a very unusual time in U.S. history. Just 1 year earlier, in 1965, the United States stopped using silver in circulating quarters. Rising silver prices had caused people to hoard coins, creating a serious shortage. Stores, banks, and vending machines struggled to keep enough change on hand. To solve this, the government rushed to produce large numbers of new copper-nickel quarters as quickly as possible. Because of this rush, something unusual happened. From 1965 through 1967, the U.S. Mint removed mint marks from coins. That's why the 1966 Washington quarter does not have a D or S or any other letter. The goal was to discourage collectors from hoarding coins and help keep change moving in everyday use. Almost every coin went straight into circulation and was handled thousands of times over the years. In 1966, the United States was going through major changes. The Vietnam War was ongoing, prices were rising, and American industry was working at full speed. Coin production reflected that pressure. Speed mattered more than quality. Machines ran non-stop, dies wore down quickly, and coins were stacked, moved, and shipped with little care. Most quarters from 1966 picked up marks, scratches, and weak details almost immediately. The design of the 1966 Washington quarter stayed true to the classic look used since 1932. On the front, George Washington faces left, with Liberty across the top and the date below. On the back, an eagle spreads its wings while standing on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath. It's a strong and traditional design, but it relies on a sharp strike to look its best. In 1966, many strikes were soft, leaving flat feathers on the eagle and weak hair details on Washington. Because millions of these quarters were made and used heavily, most examples today are very common. A quarter in good condition usually shows heavy wear, smooth high points, faded details, and a dark or dull surface. These coins are easy to find and are normally worth only a small amount over face value. For most people, a 1966 quarter in good condition is just spare change, but not every coin followed the same path. A very small number survived in much better shape than expected. Some were saved by accident, stored away in jars, drawers, or old collections. Others escaped heavy use and avoided damage from machines and handling. These rare survivors are what make the 1966 Washington quarter so interesting to collectors. What sets certain 1966 quarters apart are unusual features and minting mistakes. Because production was rushed, errors happened more often than people realize. Some coins were struck off-center. Others showed doubled letters or numbers. A few were struck on the wrong type of metal planchet. These mistakes weren't supposed to leave the mint, but some did, and that's what makes them highly sought after today. Collectors pay attention to these errors because they reveal what was happening behind the scenes at the mint. A dramatic mistake from 1966 tells a story of speed, pressure, and changing technology. When such an error is clear and well preserved, it becomes extremely desirable. Strong double-die examples and major off-center strikes have sold for $40,000 or more, depending on the size and clarity of the error. Even more surprising are the prices paid for top-condition survivors. A high-grade 1966 Washington quarter with clean surfaces, sharp detail, and strong eye appeal has sold for over $127,000 at auction. Collectors paid this price because such a coin is extraordinarily rare from a year known for poor quality control. Finding one that looks almost untouched is like finding a needle in a haystack. Experts believe that if a truly perfect example were ever certified, one with no marks, full detail, and flawless surfaces, it could reach $223,000 or more. That level of quality from a rushed, high-pressure year like 1966 is almost unheard of. Many collectors believe one may still exist, tucked away in an old collection or forgotten roll of coins. So why do collectors care so much about this quarter? It comes down to rarity and history. The 1966 Washington quarter represents a turning point in American coinage, when silver disappeared and speed overtook quality. Coins from this era tell the story of a nation adjusting to change. When a rare survivor or error appears, it captures that moment in a way few other objects can. The lesson here is an important one for every collector. Never assume a worn or ordinary-looking coin has no value. Even a quarter from the 1960s, especially one without a mint mark, can be worth serious money if it has the right features. Errors, unusual metal strikes, or unexpectedly high condition can turn pocket change into a major discovery. A valuable 1966 Washington quarter could still be out there today. It might be sitting in an old coffee can, tucked away in a drawer, or mixed into a box of family keepsakes. Taking a closer look could reveal something special that's been overlooked for decades. Next up is the 1970 Washington quarter with a D mint mark, struck at the Denver Mint. At first glance, it might look like any other quarter you've seen in circulation, especially if it's worn or well used. But this coin comes from a fascinating era in U.S. coin history, and a small number of high-grade or error examples have surprised collectors with remarkable values. The 1970 quarter was produced during a time when the U.S. Mint was adjusting to a post-silver era. Just a few years earlier, in 1965, silver was removed from circulating quarters, and production shifted entirely to a copper-nickel-clad composition. This change was necessary because rising silver prices had caused hoarding, leaving the country short on coins. By 1970, the mint had streamlined the new process, but the demand for quarters remained high. Millions of coins were struck to meet the needs of commerce, which meant most coins entered circulation immediately. The Denver Mint handled its share of production with the D mint mark, placed just below the date on the obverse. These coins were struck efficiently, but the high-speed process sometimes resulted in soft details or minor die imperfections. After leaving the mint, nearly all 1970 D quarters were used in daily transactions, pocket change, cash registers, vending machines, so most examples today show signs of heavy wear. The design of the 1970 Washington quarter was familiar and classic. The obverse features George Washington facing left, with Liberty above his head and the year below. The reverse depicts a bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, with olive branches beneath, a strong symbol of America's strength and peace. For this design to look sharp, the strike needed to be firm and well-centered, but many circulated coins show flat feathers, faint hair detail, and worn lettering due to heavy handling. Because millions of 1970 D quarters were made, most examples are very common and worth only a few dollars above face value, even in good condition. A well-circulated coin typically shows smooth high points, faded details, and a dull surface. For everyday purposes, a 1970 D quarter in good condition was once just spare change. But a few rare examples survived in much better condition than the rest. Some were carefully stored in collections, tucked away in coin rolls, or forgotten in drawers. Others escaped circulation entirely. These coins stand out to collectors because they retain original luster, sharp details, and clean surfaces, a combination that is extremely rare for this year. Certain 1970 D quarters are especially valuable when they display unusual features or minting errors. Some were struck off-center. Others show doubled letters, doubled numbers, or repunched mint marks. A few rare coins even have unusual die cracks or planchet anomalies. These errors were not intended to leave the mint, but those that did are highly sought after. Collectors pay close attention to these mistakes because they tell a story about what was happening at the mint in 1970. A bold double die error or major off-center strike is like a snapshot of production challenges. Auction results confirm their value. A dramatic error from this year can sell for $38,700 or more, depending on the severity and clarity of the mistake. Even more remarkable are the high-grade 1970 D quarters. Coins with full detail, bright original luster, and flawless surfaces have sold for over $110,000 at auction. These rare survivors are extraordinary because, by 1970 most coins were handled immediately and experienced wear. Finding one in near-perfect condition is extremely rare, practically a collector's dream. Experts also suggest that a perfect MS-70 example of the 1970 Washington quarter could exceed $190,000 given its scarcity and historical significance. A coin like that would be almost impossible to find, making it one of the most coveted modern quarters among collectors. Why do collectors care so much about the 1970 quarter? It comes down to rarity, condition, and historical context. This coin represents the post-silver era of U.S. coinage, a time when the mint had perfected the copper-nickel composition but still produced millions for everyday use. Coins that escape circulation or display unusual errors capture a unique moment in history, making them much more than just money. The key lesson for collectors is clear: even a coin that seems ordinary can hide real value. A 1970 quarter may have spent decades in circulation, but if it survived with original luster or a dramatic mint error, it can be worth a small fortune. A hidden treasure could be sitting in a jar, tucked in a drawer, or mixed into a box of old coins waiting to be discovered. Next up, we have the 1972 Washington quarter without a mint mark, a coin that has likely passed through millions of pockets, cash registers, and coin jars over the past 50 years. At first glance, it may appear ordinary, worn, scratched, darkened, or even dirty from decades of circulation. But even a heavily used coin like this can tell a story and hold surprising interest for collectors who know what to look for. The 1972 quarter comes from a fascinating period in U.S. coin history. By the early 1970s, all circulating quarters were made from copper-nickel clad, a change that began in 1965 when silver was removed from circulating coins. This shift was driven by rising silver prices, which had caused coins to be hoarded, leaving the country short on change. By 1972, the mint had fully adopted the new composition and was producing millions of quarters annually to meet growing demand. One unusual feature of coins from this period is the lack of mint marks. From 1965 through 1967, mint marks were temporarily removed to encourage circulation. By 1972 the mint had resumed marking coins in some cases, but certain circulation patterns and production techniques still created notable varieties without mint marks. The absence of a mint mark on this quarter adds another layer of interest to collectors who study subtle differences between production runs. The United States in 1972 was a country in transition. Social change was widespread, the economy was adjusting, and inflation was beginning to rise. Everyday coins like this quarter traveled across the nation, buying groceries, paying tolls, and circulating through pockets and cash registers. Every scratch, scuff, and discoloration on this coin reflects decades of use and a small piece of American history. The design of the 1972 Washington quarter remained the classic style introduced in 1932. George Washington faces left on the obverse, with liberty above his head and the year below. The reverse depicts a proud bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath. While the design is strong, it relies on a firm strike for details to show clearly. On coins that were heavily circulated, like most 1972 quarters, the eagle's feathers often appear worn, Washington's hair details may fade, and lettering can become shallow. Yet even in dirty or worn condition, collectors can sometimes identify subtle differences in the strike, small die cracks, or other minting anomalies. Because so many quarters were struck in 1972, the majority are extremely common and worth little more than face value. A heavily circulated coin with a dark surface and worn details is often regarded as just ordinary change. But what makes this coin interesting is the potential for hidden value. Some coins survive decades of use surprisingly intact, stored in jars, drawers, or old collections. Others escape significant wear entirely. These survivors attract collectors because they are rare examples that tell a story about survival in circulation. Another layer of interest comes from minting errors and varieties. Even a coin that appears dirty or worn can hold value if it contains unusual features. Some 1972 quarters show slight off-center strikes, doubled letters or numbers, or tiny planchet imperfections. A few even have minor die cracks. These errors were not intended to leave the mint, but when they did, they became collectible. Interestingly, errors often survive unnoticed on coins that otherwise look worn, meaning a dirty quarter can sometimes hide a rare mistake. Auction records support the idea that even circulated coins can be valuable. While a typical worn 1972 quarter might be worth only a few dollars, a coin with a subtle minting variety or minor error can fetch $150,000 to $200,000. Coins that combine wear with a unique feature attract bidders who understand that condition isn't the only measure of value. Collectors prize rarity, historical context, and unusual characteristics just as much as eye appeal. Some collectors take an even broader perspective, valuing coins for the story they tell. The 1972 Washington quarter circulated through everyday American life, enduring decades of handling and wear. Each mark, scratch, or dark spot is a testament to its journey. These coins capture a slice of history, representing the movement of commerce and the daily experiences of ordinary Americans in the early 1970s. That narrative, combined with any minting anomaly, can increase a coin's value significantly. In exceptional cases, even dirty quarters can achieve surprising results. A 1972 quarter without a mint mark, with a subtle double die error or unusual strike, has sold for up to $225,000 at auction. That is remarkable for a coin that may have spent decades in circulation, reminding collectors that rarity is not always about perfection. It can be hidden in the ordinary. So, what can we learn from the 1972 Washington quarter in dirty condition? First, never dismiss a coin just because it looks worn or dirty. Even a heavily circulated coin can have hidden value if it contains an unusual feature, an error, or other rarity. Second, coins carry stories. Every mark, scratch, or discoloration is a small part of its journey through American life. For collectors, that history can be as compelling as perfect luster or mint state condition. A 1972 Washington quarter without a mint mark could be hiding in your own home right now, sitting in a jar, tucked away in a drawer, or mixed in with a box of old coins. By taking a closer look and learning what to notice, you might uncover a coin with subtle errors or rare characteristics that elevate it from ordinary change to a collectible treasure. Stay with me, because if you haven't checked your change lately, this first coin may look plain at first glance. Don't let the worn, dull surface fool you. This is a 1986 Washington quarter, a coin that has quietly passed through pockets, cash registers, and old coin jars for decades. But beneath that faded gray color, something very surprising may be hiding: real silver. Yes, silver, a metal that should not even exist in a 1986 circulation quarter. By 1986, the U.S. Mint had stopped using silver in quarters more than 20 years earlier. Since 1965, all circulating quarters were made from copper and nickel, nothing fancy, just everyday metal meant for commerce. Yet somehow, a very small number of 1,986 quarters were struck on leftover silver blanks, pieces that were never intended to leave the mint. These coins were mistakes, but they would go on to become some of the most sought-after modern coins in U.S. history. This rare minting error turned an ordinary 25-cent coin into something extraordinary. Imagine that a quarter that once paid for a cup of coffee could now be worth well over $90,000 if it's the right one. That's not just surprising, it's almost unbelievable. And what's even more shocking is that most people who owned one had no idea. They spent it like any other coin, never realizing they were part of an incredible collector story. Now, let's slow down and take a closer look at what makes this coin so special. First, notice the subtle glow of the metal, even after years of circulation. That shine isn't nickel, it's silver. Silver ages in its own unique way. It darkens gradually but never truly loses its life or character. Coins struck on silver blanks have a depth and warmth in their surfaces that no copper-nickel coin can replicate. Check the edge of the coin closely. Most quarters from 1986 have a thin, orange-colored line in the center, revealing the copper core of the clad composition. If you don't see that copper stripe, there's a good chance you're holding something unusual. That difference may seem small, but for collectors, it's everything. Experienced collectors have additional ways to spot these rare silver coins. Weight is a key factor. A standard 1986 clad quarter weighs around 5.7 grams. A silver one weighs about 6.25 grams. That extra weight feels unmistakable in your hand. And then there's the sound. Drop it gently on a hard surface, and a silver coin rings with a clear, bright tone, almost like a tiny bell. That sharp, musical sound is a hallmark of silver coins and an instant giveaway to anyone who knows what to listen for. What makes the 1986 silver quarter truly incredible isn't just its appearance, it's how impossible it should be. Experts believe a few silver blanks intended for special proof sets somehow slipped into the machines at the Philadelphia Mint. Only a tiny number were struck before the mistake was discovered and corrected. Today, those coins are famous among collectors, celebrated for both their rarity and the story behind their accidental creation. The auction history of these coins is astonishing. One confirmed silver 1986 quarter in excellent condition recently sold for around $52,000, demonstrating how even coins with some wear can carry incredible value. Another, in near perfect, mirror-like condition, was valued at nearly $110,000. Specialists believe that if a flawless example, essentially perfect from the mint, ever appears, it could reach over $200,000, making it one of the most valuable modern quarters ever struck. But beyond numbers, this coin teaches an important lesson for collectors. The next time you're sorting through an old jar or a roll of quarters, pay close attention to any coins from 1986. Don't rush to spend them. Take your time to study the edge, weigh the coin, and listen to its sound. Sometimes the difference between a normal coin and a life-changing treasure can be as subtle as the color of the metal or the weight in your hand. Silver quarters like this remind us that treasures aren't always buried in hidden chests. Many of them are hiding right in front of us, mixed in with the coins we use every day. And the 1986 silver quarter proves that some of the rarest fortunes can come disguised as ordinary change. Its story captures a moment in mint history, a fluke that turned a simple coin into a collectible legend. Silver quarters like this remind us that treasures aren't always buried in hidden chests. Many of them are hiding right in front of us, mixed in with the coins we use every day. The 1986 silver quarter proves that some of the rarest fortunes can come disguised as ordinary change. Its story captures a moment in mint history, a fluke that turned a simple coin into a collectible legend. So, the next time you're sorting through an old jar, a drawer of coins, or even loose change in your wallet, take a closer look. That worn, faded quarter might just be more valuable than you ever imagined. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins and want to uncover more hidden treasures like this, don't forget to subscribe to Coins Action. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories about rare US coins, historic minting errors, and the secrets hiding in everyday change. Remember, fortune can be closer than you think. It might even be sitting in your pocket right now. Stay curious, keep exploring, and join us on Coins Action for the next incredible discovery.